The Indian Prime Minister meeting his Japanese counterpart ahead of the first in-person Quad summit in Washington, D.C. U.S. President Joe Biden will be hosting the dignitaries at the White House. The agenda of the Quad summit is clear: an open and free Indo-Pacific, the COVID-19 pandemic, the manufacture and supply of COVID-19 vaccines, addressing the climate crisis, the urgency of climate action, and partnering on emerging technologies and cyberspace cooperation, among other aspects. And with us on the broadcast is our executive editor, Palki Sharma Upadhyay, who has been tracking all those developments very closely in Washington, D.C. Hi, Palki. It's been a busy day for the Indian Prime Minister so far with those back-to-back engagements and bilateral meetings. Talking first about his bilateral with his Japanese counterpart, the elephant in the room, rather the dragon in the room, has been tackling China. What's your assessment of the scope and potential of the Quad grouping when it comes to dealing with the Beijing threat?
If you asked me about today's meetings, Molly, 8 meetings, and I would say that Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga was perhaps the most important. I say this because last week the AUKUS strategic alliance was announced. The only 2 Quad members who are not part of AUKUS are India and Japan. And it is especially significant for Japan because Japan is a treaty ally of the US. India is not. India's relationship with the US is based on diplomatic values, on trade, on people-to-people relationship, on strategic convergence. But we've not been military allies, so to speak. That is the hub and spoke network, as they call it. Japan was part of it. Taiwan is part of it. Australia is part of it. India is not. So this is very significant, the fact that India and Japan are not going to be part of this nuclear submarine deal and what is now being dubbed as the Asian NATO. There was a time when the Quad was called this, now it's the AUKUS. So the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Suga is important. Also to note here is the fact that this is Prime Minister Suga's last week in office. He's going to be leaving office, and in the run-up to this meeting there was, I'm given to understand, no clarity on whether the Japanese side will participate, and we understand that the Indian side said that they will attach a lot of significance to the participation of the Japanese. So there is a lot that's going together between India and Japan, and this meeting, I'm sure, would have cemented that relationship. We are expecting some sort of a policy continuity in Tokyo as well. We've seen a lot of prime ministers come and go in the past few years, but Japan's commitment and Japan's investment in the Quad remains steady because these are countries that have all come together and have this alliance has been galvanized by China's expansionism. So China, certainly the elephant in the room. It's also important to note that for both India and Japan, China is a major trade partner. To take on China has certain risks. While we want to contain China, we also want to benefit from its economic growth. So all of these things are going to be discussed. Both countries are democracies. Japan has a special place in Prime Minister Modi's scheme of things. One of the first things that he announced as Indian Prime Minister was the Kashi-Kyoto Pact, and things have gone forward. The Japanese Prime Minister was to visit India in April this year, but because of the second wave of the COVID, that visit had to be postponed. They had a conversation on the phone. So this is a very, very important and significant meeting, I would say, for both sides.
Indeed, and the Indian Prime Minister also met his Australian counterpart, Scott Morrison. That meeting has been described as outstanding by the Australian Prime Minister while responding to a question posed by our correspondent, Siddhant Sibul. Talking about the AUKUS alliance, Palki, in the backdrop of which this meeting took place, Prime Minister Morrison had also reached out to the Indian Prime Minister before the AUKUS alliance was announced. That tells us a lot about the significance that Australia attaches to the partnership with India. What is your view on to what extent the AUKUS row will impact India? Also, the balancing act for India as a challenge when it comes to its trilateral with France, Australia and India?
Well, AUKUS is something that has, I think, divided observers. Very interesting and divergent points of view and very compelling arguments, Molly, being made by all sides. Some say that AUKUS would come as a relief to New Delhi because now it is not incumbent upon us to have a military dimension. The focus has shifted to Australia, the UK and the US, and India was never really very keen to enter into some sort of a military partnership of this kind, a formal partnership. Which also involves some sort of defense deals. So that should come as a relief because that takes the pressure off New Delhi. Others say that that will further put a question mark on the relevance of the Quad, which has been around for 14 years and basically was floated as an idea back in 2004, and Quad has not been able to define its structure, its scope. It's still an informal alliance, a loose alliance with no formal structure. So with the announcement of the AUKUS, where does that leave the Quad? So there are both points of view. New Delhi, on its part, is saying that AUKUS and Quad are two very different to very different frameworks, and New Delhi is happy to work, and they want to focus largely on trade. You see, China's expansionism is not just military in nature, it is also economic in nature, and can Quad then become an alliance that can counter China's predatory economics? That is the question that Quad leaders must ask of themselves. Remember, they're all heavily dependent on the supply chain centered in China. They're all major trade partners of China. So if they are going to contain China in any way, it has to start with trade. It has to start with investment. It has to start with giving other countries in the region, because you see a lot of other South Asian and Asian countries are not part of Quad. There are only these 4 countries that are Quad members. So are you going to expand the Quad? Are you going to make it difficult for these countries and tell them to pick sides between the US and China? Because frankly, why would they? They would want to benefit from both sides. So the Quad wants to keep it ambiguous. While it is sending a message to Beijing, it does not want to openly confront Beijing. I think that is the idea, and that is the general assumption on which all sides are working. Of course, the specifics of what has been discussed in the meetings will only be revealed by and by, but we understand that these were very important conversations to be had in light of what we've seen in the past 2 years. And I must also tell you this, since we're talking about Australia and the US, there is a marked difference in their approach to India. You saw the 2017 Doklam standoff, and there was no open support from either country. And then you saw the 2020 Ladakh standoff, and there was a public support for India from both Washington and Canberra. So there is clearly a shift, and that is visible in the tone, in the conversations, and in the nature of the relationship that both sides, all sides in fact, are trying to forge.
Right, and talking about the meetings that are now to take place over the next few hours, the all-important Quad summit, these bilaterals that have taken place, of course, are aimed at finding common ground before the quadrilateral summit. Also, the bilateral with the American president that is going to be taking place before that, Palki. What would India's priorities largely be when it comes to tackling the climate change crisis, when it comes to the Afghanistan issue, which carries far-reaching implications for the entire region, specifically India?
I think there is an understanding in the Indian camp that the Americans wants to keep their hands off Afghanistan. That's a theater of conflict that they've exited, and they want to keep it like that. So India will have to safeguard its own interest in Afghanistan, and India will have to find its own strategic partners. And for that, I think India is working more closely with an Iran or a Russia rather than the US. Having said that, it's very important for India to underline the threat that the evolving situation in Afghanistan poses for security in Kashmir in particular, and for security in India in general. And for that, it's very important to underline the fact that the support that Pakistan gives to certain elements in the Taliban and otherwise needs to be called out. And Pakistan is an ally of the Americans, even though that alliance is is in tatters, but they are working together. Pakistan is very much part of the Afghan Quad that Washington has announced. So there is a lot of counterbalancing to be done here, and I'm assuming that India is going to put on the table those concerns that are being aggravated post the botched up withdrawal of the Biden administration. The other thing is climate change. India has been a proponent of pushing for climate-friendly investment. India has delivered better than a lot of other countries on its climate change commitments. That's a cause that Prime Minister Modi has very enthusiastically espoused and keeps working towards. So that's something that I'm sure they will talk about. China. This is something that came up in discussions with the Indian contingent here, and they were repeatedly asked, will China be discussed? And the answer was very interesting. We were told that when these multilateral meetings happen, and when you talk about Afghanistan, when you talk about Myanmar, why wouldn't you talk about China? So that's how they're approaching it, that yes, we will discuss China as just another issue that needs to be discussed. Trade is very important between India and the US, and that has been underlined by the fact that Prime Minister Modi has chosen to meet 5 top CEOs of the US. India wants that investment. All countries, in fact, are dealing with a post-pandemic economy that needs a booster shot, and India would want to do that with the latest technologies. So we are talking about semiconductors, we are talking about 5G, we are talking about solar energy. All of those things will have to be formalized. Trade is also a hiccup because the Biden administration is not very keen on free trade agreements. So how do we work around the concerns? The Americans want to sell a lot of agriculture products in India. The Indians, as you would understand, see agriculture as a very important, it's a cornerstone of the Indian economy. It employs a lot of people, and we have our concerns and sensibilities that our partners will have to understand. So a lot of these things need to be worked out. But if you ask me what the big picture looks like, the big picture looks like that of 2 countries that see a lot of things working well and in common, and they will want to push for more commonality and for more convergence going forward.
Right, as they were described by the Vice President of the US, Kamala Harris, just a short while back, US and India are natural allies and partners. A lot to look forward to, and WION will be closely tracking each and every development continuously with our team on the ground. Palki Sharma Upadhyay, our executive editor in Washington, D.C. Thanks very much for the moment. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.